that's also a way to stand out, and it will really help.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, like back to fundamentals, how what separates people the most is just being consistent, and if you say something, doing what you say, like at the bare minimum level, like showing up, to your point, answering emails, being consistent. You'd be surprised how much that separates you and brings you up to that 10%.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's really it. And then on top of that comes the we are kind of live now. This is what I always wanted to say. We are live.
And we're officially live.
We are officially live. Exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment.
We are back. We're continuing on the episodes. How are we doing, Nick?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Fantastic. It's a sunny day today, so that's all it takes for me these days. A sunny day and my mood shifts to the max.
Well, we just came out of a heat wave, so I'm very happy with a little bit of drizzle today and gray skies. Like it's really, the temperature is really going down, so I'm more focused. I'm sleeping better. So I'm happy it's not sunny today, which is a crazy thing to say, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was with you. A couple of weeks ago, we had a similar thing, just living inside with the air conditioning. And that's not ideal.
No. I have a 2-year-old, as you know, and I have a cat. So it's an indoor cat. So it's challenging for me to open up a window or a door even. So yeah, the heat stayed inside with us, sadly. But there's some real life UX thing we can do there, I guess, like a cat-proof opening somewhere.
As long as you start with a wireframe, you're on your right path.
Yeah, I should ask Claude or Lovable, see what they think.
Exactly.
But today, weather out of the way. Today we're talking about, the big question I see so many people talking about online everywhere in the design community, which is it even worth it to study UX and product design in today's day and age of AI development? Especially if it's a 1, 2, and maybe even 3-year program. Like if you go to a university, you learn stuff, and then before you even have your diploma, you might be obsolete or outdated. So I think that's really important to discuss. And I have, I think, a strong view on it, but I'm also curious about your view. What do you think?
I think maybe we can start with each other. Like, where did you learn product design? I'm curious if you took a program at school. How did product design come about for you?
Well, if you go really far back, really far, is my father still works in the same place as he did 25 years ago in a creative agency, really print media. Imagine flyers and brochures and posters and the billboards and the stuff you see in supermarkets and train stations, that kind of stuff. And he brought a lot of his work home with him, which spread the design virus my way. I was very impressed, as any small boy is, I guess, if his father brings something home from work. So, quote unquote, I wanted to do something with design without really knowing what type of design. I didn't know what UX was back in the day. Product design wasn't really an official job, I think. So I did a 4-year university program called Communication and Multimedia Design. Very broad, anything from design and marketing to programming. First 2 years you do everything, and then in the final 2 years, so the second half, you pick one of 4 directions. So it's 6 months for each direction. You get a bit of lay of the land, a little bit of everything. And then I went for the interaction. That's one of the 4 directions, interaction design. Mostly because I noticed that I really liked psychology, interaction design, all that kind of stuff, animation also a little bit. And before I really knew what UX was, I had a UX internship, in the second half of that education, and graduation project also in the same direction, and then a first job in UX. So I did long answer short, I did an old school traditional university education. Or I guess you call it college over there. I'm not sure, but it's the University of Applied Science is what they called it. And then you had a design direction. So that's what I did. So I went from something with design to UX design. And since then, I've done basically any type of design role you can think of. Anything from UX interaction to video editing and everything on that spectrum.
Yeah, I think I came from a similar. I actually took that same college program. I don't know if it was similar, but it was called the Communication Multimedia. So it was the everything, where you were interested in just things that were creative, but you didn't. It was the program for just trying things out. But it was a 2-year program. So anything from painting, sculpting, film, graphic design, all things creative. Didn't really get anything much out of that program since it was only just 2 years, but then found looking for a graphic design course and happened to stumble upon one that was paired with programming. So it was 50-50 programming and graphic design. I had only taken it, to be fair, for the graphic design portion. I was like, yeah, I'll skip that second half of it, but I ended up liking it. So not from to your point, probably UX design didn't exist back then, or in the official way. So I kind of had to stumble my way in as like things change. Went from making things pretty to realizing relatively quickly that there's a process and there's a skill set to be deployed when creating, whether it's web design or product.
Yeah, and then so that's 2 years, and then after another program that's also 2 years.
It was actually a 10-month course, so it was intensive. It was to get you kind of quickly in and quickly out. So part of it was a 10-month internship. A 10-month program, and then 2 months was an internship, which was part of the program. So you'd work somewhere for free, and then you would get. I don't know if they do that anymore, but 2 month internship, and you were graded on that portion too. That was part of your grade. How well you did in the actual world, which was good.
Right. Yeah. So both of us, we've done a multi-year education program around design and the different overlapping areas.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like in many ways we have a kind of design education, but it doesn't sound like we have the traditional kind of product design or UX course that we have taken to get us up to speed. So it sounds like we're, at least from my perspective, I don't know what you think about it, I don't think you necessarily need a course. I think it depends on how you like to learn. Some people can learn just by going on Google or YouTube, doing a couple of tutorials. Others need like a teacher in front of them, kind of guiding them through step by step. So I think it doesn't matter which jump off point you start with, whether it's traditional kind of structured school or self-taught.
Well, it depends on the person, like you say.
Yeah.
I like really early days, I watched a lot of Photoshop tutorials on YouTube, like how to edit pictures, like take a picture of yourself, and then in Photoshop you can create like fireballs on your hands and turn yourself into a wizard or some sort of knight or anything cool, and first tutorial I did everything like exactly step by step, but after doing multiple tutorials, you become proficient enough to start to mix and match together elements from different videos. Like that was a big, a big turning point for myself. So that's what what your remark made me think of, like watching tutorials. I think that's still a very good thing to do. I also think that big question, is it worth it to study UX and product design? Currently 2025, but also beyond, isn't really about like, should it be a UX specific education, but more the question is more about, is it even worth it to study something, whatever it is, to become a UX designer or a product designer in 6 months or longer? And given that there's a lot of fear online about, we're all going to lose our jobs. And then also on social media, you see a lot of people talking about how challenging the UX and the product design market currently is, with hundreds of applicants. Like, is it worth it to become the 501st person on the list looking for a job? Yes or no? So I think that's the thing that people are wondering, not really if it's about, what type of education.
Here's what I'd say. What I didn't mention was I actually took a 1.5 course in 3D and 2D animation. I was really I stumbled upon this website that was teaching After Effects tutorials, and I got really into the idea of creating special effects for movies or creating character or building 3D models for video games. And through my education, art has always been something that I've been really good at and that became very easy to me. So when I took that 3D animation course, to be fair, they kept giving out grades that were really good, regardless of how well you were doing. So I wasn't taking it as serious as I should have. And what I didn't know was actually for that industry specifically, the percentage of job placements after graduates is 33%, right. Which means it's very hard to get into, at that time, into the gaming industry. And because I didn't take it super seriously, I wasn't able to land a job in that field, hence the pivot to graphic design or web design. So all that to say, I think if you're serious about getting into product design, you have to work really hard. Make sure that you do the fundamentals, internship, work for free, work really hard, and then I think it's going to be easier for you to find a career if that's the step one. I think to your point, boot camps, the industry is flooded with designers and products and people from product. I think you just have to stand out. And that comes with hard work.
Stand out how?
I think you just have to, I've been taking a look at people's portfolios and CVs or resumes, and they all look the same. I think you just have to separate yourself, not make yourself cookie cutter. So first part of just doing anything is copying, and then copying from someone that inspires you. So it's first step is, there are 3 people that inspire me that I love their work. I'm going to copy 1-to-1 what they do. And as you get better, it's like music. You learn the music, and then afterwards you add your own notes to it, which becomes your kind of unique style.
Right.
I think part of getting hired is not always also your portfolio, who they want to work alongside. So it's also your personality. So I think there's a variety of ways that you can stand out, but also you have to be good at the craft and strategy as well.
As a couple of things. Let's say first, I agree with what you're saying, and it's the advice I also give to people. Hey, you have to stand out. But I've been thinking more and more recently that it's valid advice, but it's also stupid advice at the same time.
Tell me.
Because someone's new, they're in school, they're young, or they come from a different field, marketing or whatever, anything non-design related. They don't know yet how to stand out. They don't know what the default thing is. They go to school like everyone else, and then the school teaches you the same thing with everyone there. So you come out of school as an NPC. You come out as a default person. The standing out part comes after. Like you say, you have to imitate, learn, see what people do, how they do it, and take the things you like, combine them together in your own style. Well, like I mentioned with the Photoshop tutorials, like at some point you get that uptick moment of, hey, now I get it. What if I pick A from this video, B from that video, and I create my own C? So that takes time, but people expect to get a job right out of school, because some boot camps promise you that you will get a job, job guarantee, blah, 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 that kind of stuff, which is, not a fault of a designer. I think that's more the fault of the boot camp or the education institute. They promise you stuff just so you pay them and sign up. So I don't know yet what a better advice is. Standing out, but how? Well, keep practicing and expect it to take a while. I think that's maybe the disclaimer next to the standout thingy, which is still valid advice, of course.
I also think hustle comes into play as well. I know, I don't know where you sit on this. I'd mentioned that I'd interned, which was free work. So I think doing a lot of, when you get out of school, you're doing projects that are a bit cookie cutter. Like in your portfolio itself, you want to kind of stand out. I think part of that is, either it reminds me of my uncle when he was looking for his first job in finance. He went to an advisor shop. That's probably not the right term, but he went and he tried to apply. For a position. They weren't hiring. So what he did was he went every day in the morning. He stood outside the building with a suit on every day for a month. Nice. Until they finally hired him. Now, from that example, I don't think they hired his ability. I just think they hired the person that he was communicating, that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a job here. So I think there's two avenues: either work for free, just knock on doors, be persistent. And I think another way is maybe just create your own thing. I'd had a mentorship session recently where this woman created her own e-commerce store before even getting into UX, meaning that they have something that's living and breathing, they launched, and it's real. And then having something like that in your portfolio, regardless of how well it did, I think shows a bit of that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, that's great. Like, imagine you being a graduate together with, just to make things easier, 10 older people, as a figure of speech. Like, they all have the same, end of school project, like the big project you do at the end. And then you have your e-commerce store, that puts you like top 3 at least out of those 10. I say top 3 and not top 1 because there are always companies who don't like the e-commerce stuff because they think like, well, are you even committed to my business with you working on your own thing? What if it takes off? Do you still want to work here? That's something that happens too sometimes. So, but at least it moves you up the list. I think we can talk a bit more about the tips to make it worth it. Just to go back to that question, like, is it worth it to study something with all the things that are changing today? I think just to give an answer, and then you can poke holes in my answer. You can tell me what you think and if you agree or not. But I think just a super short answer is yes. It's super worth it to study product design, UX design, or anything related, or well, at least study something to become a product designer at some point. I think it's closely related to the AI era we're in, and because that question mostly comes from the fear that you see on social media, game changer, that kind of talking, nothing's going to be the same. UX just died like for the 100th time during my career, according to people on the internet. It is worth it because I see in practice that I have more work to do than ever before. There's a lot of like the projects I work in, they have more AI. Like if I work on a project, it's usually for a product or a platform or a service. that service has an AI component. Like that's changing. Like we're working on something that used to be manual and now it's something that's like AI driven or AI influenced. And I have a little bit of AI in my workflow. But I feel like so many people are trying to dig up the AI gold today that they are really looking for help to stand out, design wise. And we don't understand the best way to interact with this AI thing yet. So I feel like there's a lot of potential there. I think the product designer role is quite safe. And quite frankly, I don't really believe that creative roles or our type of work will disappear completely, as some people will say on social media. It's different compared to a year ago, but a year ago was also different compared to 5 years ago and compared to the start of my career 10 years ago. It's just going to be a new set of tools. That's it. Then the downside or the risk here is that you pick an education that's not going with its time, as we say over here. Not sure if that's a saying over there as well, but you have to pick a modern education with a good curriculum where they embrace AI and also talk about the risks and the downsides. I think that's important. So, and education is only a small part of the whole thing of building a career. It's a check on your list. Like when I look for a job here in the Netherlands, which I'm currently not, but like remembering from the time that I was looking for a job, like the first thing you see on the list is experience, and the second thing you see on the list is you need to have a degree in one of these educations, university programs or whatever. So it's important, but if you have it, it's just like, you can check that box on a job opening list.
I think the education piece, it's less important because like 90% of what you learn is on the job. 10% is that initial kind of base. And I think because things are changing so fast, finding that educational source is it's going to be very hard because they're going to have to update the curriculum on a monthly basis at the speed that everyone's going at right now. To your point,
I don't really believe that, by the way, that it's going that quick. I don't really believe it. Like if something new comes out, let's say Claude 4.0 instead of 3.7, it's quicker, it's faster, it's better, but they're like the fundamentals you have to learn, like how to explain what you have in mind in a prompt that the AI thing gets. Like that's a fundamental skill, regardless of the model version. Like you just have to be able to do it. I don't think it's going as fast as people are saying.
Yeah, and that's true. The fundamentals need to be there. And then what we call product design, I don't know what the next iteration is, UI, UX product. I think the fundamentals are true, that there have to be foundational, but what we call ourselves in the future will be different, and the tools that we use will be different. Yeah. I think the question goes to, I think just if you're interested in product in general, like, do you like to build things to solve problems? That's like the high level question. Like, do you like doing that versus the design part? I like to make these very intricate, kind of beautiful interfaces. It's like, do you like making products to improve people's lives? And then the fundamental skills come into play afterwards.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Like you have to know you have to enjoy your work. You have to see yourself work hard to make it. I think that's perhaps like we're talking about fundamental skills, but you also have the fundamental more character traits, I would say. Like you really have to want it. But that applies to any field, I think, unless there's a massive shortage in the field you're looking for. Like over here, there's a lot of shortage of like not enough people for healthcare and construction and education. Nobody wants to be a teacher over here because you get yelled at the whole time, and you're working more in admin stuff than you are teaching people. So if you do decide to become a teacher, like everyone wants to hire you instantly. But I don't think that's the default. Like if you want to go to tech, because product design is more or less a tech role, or you will probably work on software. There's more competition, but that applies to other roles in tech as well. Marketing, software development, front end, back end, the whole list. So I don't think that's a reason to decide to pursue a career in design, or to not pursue it. Like, it applies everywhere. But you have to be a top 10% designer to get a job. And that sounds harsh, but it's also not hard, because I feel like getting into that top 10% is also about, like you say, standing outside in a suit. That's how you're perceived. Like, are you replying to emails on time? Or, well, quick enough at least? Does it contain any typos? Like, what's the grammar like? Are you friendly? Are you on time in meetings? Do you dress well? And it doesn't have to be a suit, but like, are you wearing a smelly, wrinkly shirt? Are you just,
Hope not.
are you a clean person? That kind of stuff. That really helps. And that really moves you up to the top, X% of people already. I talked today to someone who's like, he told me, like, why is it so hard to find a designer? And then I'm like, I don't get it. There are, hundreds of designers applying to the same job. And why are you telling me there's nobody there? Like, that might be on that person. Like, maybe he has the bar too high, unrealistic expectations. Or maybe out of all the applicants, lots of people are indeed using typos or AI generated, obviously AI generated emails. I don't know, but I feel like it's if you are yourself, if you're authentic, if you write your own emails, that's also a way to stand out, and it will really help.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, like, back to fundamentals, how what separates people the most is just being consistent, and if you say something, doing what you say, like at the bare minimum level, like showing up, to your point, answering emails, being consistent. You'd be surprised how much that separates you and brings you up to that 10%.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's really it. And then next, on top of that comes the design fundamental skills, which is a whole different rant. I'm not really going to do today. But it's also the laziness I'm afraid of that we're all going towards, because naturally our brain is wired to take shortcuts and survive, from our animal brain. So we can resist the AI speed that we have at our fingertips. But at some point we will get lazy, all of us in different ways, just, generate my resume, generate my cover letter. But if you resist it long enough, it will really help you. And it also applies to, your work. Like I'm not even that old, but people taught me, Gestalt principles and psychology and color theory and typography. Like, nothing I do in my designs is random. Every bit of margin and spacing and line heights and the use of color versus not in different places, like, it's all based on design theory. And I don't feel like that's talked about enough in design educations. And if you, on top of it, generate a lot of stuff, you will never learn the fundamentals that you really need to learn to become a top 10% or top 1% designer even.
Yeah, of course. Like, you have to, like, when you go to school, you learn how to write with pen and paper first, and then you can learn how to type, because you're learning, like, you have to learn what the letters are first, and then you have to learn, okay, how words connected together, and then you're able to kind of fly. But if you skip that step, you're then Like to your point, if you're generating a bunch of stuff that you don't know what it's spitting out, you're you're not you're not using the tools correctly. Everything is supposed to enhance what your current abilities are. And if you're just spitting out for efficiency's sake, then we're spinning plates here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so that's my concern, and I feel like I'm turning more and more into this like a grumpy old man, shouting at the new generation, like back in our day we did this and this, But I see them struggle. Like I see so many sad people on Reddit, for example. They say like, well, I've done hundreds of, I've applied hundreds of times for a job. And I have like 5 or 6 interviews and nothing comes from it. But then at the same time, like sometimes I comment on them like, well, you could try this and this and this. But it's like the contrast between what I suggest and what everyone else believes is quite high. And then I get lots of downvotes, which is quite funny, actually. But I want to help them. So I always hope that someone reads the comment. It's like, oh, I'm going to try it. And that something comes from it for them,
I think you hit on something. I think that might be a fundamental skill, the ability to get rejected. I think that comes with like our industry, like outside of like the job rejections, like making a thing, presenting it, and then having it being criticized is a skill, and not being emotionally disconnected between what you're presenting as a solution is a skill also. I remember early in my career, like, oh, I've made this thing, it's beautiful. And sometimes you would hide it and not present it because you wouldn't want to get that feedback. But part of being a product designer is showing something, having it being criticized or getting something rejected, and not being in your feelings about it, because it's part of the process. Iteration is part of the process. Yes, something gets rejected, or somebody told you that they didn't like a thing, but we have to understand why. So I got rejected by 100 jobs. Why did I get rejected by those 100?
Yeah.
What can I do to improve my resume, my portfolio, etc.? When I present a piece of work, it was 70% of it was criticized. Did I ask why? And then how did I improve it for the next iteration? Like that's core to what we do. It's getting rejected and getting harsh feedback. Well, hopefully not harsh, but you see where I'm going there.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's true. You can self-criticize as well. Like this is sometimes when, let's say you have an idea to solve a certain problem in design, and then you work on it, and at some point you hit a wall and you feel like, I'm not sure, but you keep trying that original design. But at some point you have to be like, well, maybe this idea just doesn't work. Maybe I have to take a step back. And that took me many years to be comfortable with. Like also with getting feedback, by the way. Like I had a big case of, but it's my baby syndrome, you know. But not anymore. That also went very well together with blank sheet of paper syndrome, which I'm sure in there's a better word for it. But being a bit paralyzed about, I'm going to make something, but I'm looking at this blank frame now here. There's nothing there yet, but what if it doesn't work? What if people don't like it? And then I would really freeze. But now I'm more like, okay, I'm just going to create something. I know it's not good enough. It doesn't have to be good enough yet, because I'm going to create something, take a step back, and the next morning I'm going to look at it again with fresh eyes. And then it feels like I'm giving feedback on someone else's design, and that really unlocks my, speed of work. So this is a bit of a side route in our discussion, but I think that's probably a skill people would need to make it in product design. Being able to take a step back,
and then like to hit like the positive sides. Like if you like something coming out of your head, working on it for a bit, whatever medium that looks like, and then having it hit the world, like how proud you, like, I don't know how you feel, but I'm still proud with everything that I released. It's like I had an idea, I put it pen and paper, computer, laptop, whatever it is, and then I was able to launch it in the world and then show it to someone. And it improved, even if it improved their life by 10% or their work life, because I'm building like software tools for business. But like, if I get a piece of feedback that like, oh, wow, this actually improved my life significantly, even if it's 10%, there's like a reward. Like that's the best part of our job, is like we're creating tools to help fix or alleviate certain problems. And that's rewarding. So that's something that to look forward to kind of get into this industry.
Yeah, that's true. I can really see that. I have the same thing. I worked on an app for one of the largest banks we have over here, and you can still use that part of the app today. I'm really proud. Like, hey, that's something I made, but also the scale. Like they have 2 million customers. That's a big influence as a designer. Like you can really mess up the day for millions of people, or you can make their day. So that's a bit of pressure, but it's also very rewarding. And the other thing related to it is that it's also very nice if you talk to like a very stubborn user, like they're very set in their ways, but then in the end they feel like, oh, well, it's not that bad. I kind of like it now. That's a big victory. Like if you can achieve it, like if you can help someone through that valley of despair and help them go from I don't like it to I like it, like that's a big that's something that could motivate people to go and work in this field. Like you can really make a difference for how people use technology in their day to day.
Yeah, true. Like I think I mentioned it before, but like analytics and sending out NPS surveys. I had mentioned a couple episodes ago that I would send out NPS surveys with emojis. So select your mood that represents your experience with our software, and then tracking that emotion over time, going from a sad face to a happy face. Like it's not overnight, but it takes time. But you see you get the reward in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, 100%. That's it. I mean, that's part of any career. You have to collect the spoils every now and then and talk about it. Up to a level that is almost annoying. But this is like your career is about who. If you want a successful career, you have to raise your hands and speak up and be visible. And that's a bit of advice I got, which I really didn't like. Because by nature, I'm very much more of a background person. But I had to accept that it's part of the game.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I really think it's worth it to become a product designer, even in the age of AI. But it really has all the disclaimer points on our list we just discussed. Like, yes, but you really have to want it. It's not going to be easy, that kind of stuff. And you also shouldn't really believe the hate and the sadness on social media. You really have to take a step back and ask yourself if that's representative for the full industry, or if it's just a place on the internet.
Be just a place on the internet. Like you get more negative. Like how often do you leave a positive review on a restaurant versus if you had a terrible, I don't know if you're that type of person to leave a negative review, but if you were to guess, I think the majority of people, if they have a negative experience, are more likely to leave a bad review versus if someone had an excellent time to leave a positive review. I think that's
true.
It just becomes like an echo chamber of, I think that's what's more visible, just the negativity. But if we're pragmatic about it and just kind of take the blinders off, I think it's more positive than negative.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I think the biggest impact you can make to study product design is not per se through formal education. I processing what we're talking about in this recording, in the back of my mind, I think what you said about copying people that inspire you and digest it and dissect it and see what they do and how they do it and why they do it, and then turning it into your own style. I think that's the best thing you can do, and that's something I still do to this day. Like if I have on Twitter, I have my list of design inspiration. It's a private list, so no need to look at it on my profile. You won't find it. But it's heavily curated too. Like if some people are on it, and then whenever I browse through the list and I don't like the work anymore, I remove them from the list. But still, when I see something and I have 10 years of experience that I really like, I really zoom in and really take a look at the details. Like, what did I do here? Why do I like this? Can I improve it? It's also an important question. So I think that's just that curiosity is something you should have not only in the beginning of your career or when you consider a career in product design, but it's something you should have always until you retire.
In the same way. As much heat as liquid glass got, I did actually try liquid glass on my own. So I did try it. So yeah, to your point, that curiosity is part of it. So I think if you're, like, to your point, like if you're super hard worker, and then you love things, you don't like doing repetitive tasks, like our industry changes so quickly. If you love change and being on your feet, learning new things, I think it's a perfect spot for you. It really keeps you on your toes and learning, because you're learning on the daily, outside of like all the new fancy tools that we're seeing.
Do you think, like, because we're talking now a lot about things you should do, are there also things where you would say, like, but please don't do this thing?
Just in, like, as part of like the craft, like when.
Well, I can give you an example. I think if let's say you consider a bootcamp and they talk a lot about design thinking in the literal sense, like here are the 5 steps to design thinking, I feel like that's a bit outdated. So yeah, be aware of what they are going to teach you. I think don't focus too much on design thinking, because I have had an education where design thinking and the double diamond and blah, blah, blah was like the default. And I went to a corporate job where they sold the double diamond to their non-designer customers. And they were all like, whoa, but then in practice, I haven't done a design thinking based project in as long as I can remember. Like the difference between like what you learn and what you apply in real life is massive there. So, so that's just an example. Like, is there anything you would stay away from, both in terms of, topics to learn, but also, way of working and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think something along the same lines is there is like if you go to school and you learn like the design process, to not be so rigid in that you have to follow that process every single time. I see some people want, like, here's the process, step 1, step 2, step 3, and they have to go through all these steps because it's part of the ideal workflow. But when we're out in the real world working for a company, sometimes you don't have time to do certain things. Sometimes you skip steps. I would have loved to test that one thing before we launched it, but guess what? We didn't have time. We have to go on to the next thing. I don't
repeat steps.
Exactly. So I think to not be so rigid is be my advice. It's good to be flexible. You don't have to do everything perfect. Nothing will be perfect. It's all part of the process.
Yeah. If you look at the design thinking stuff, they have like, I'm not even sure if I remember the 5 steps, but it's ideate and then blah blah blah. But so that's how far I've fallen out of the design thinking bubble, that I cannot drill the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the steps right now on the spot. But I feel like it's like the actual process for basically any project is understand what needs to be done, do it. Like, that's all. And it's a bit black and white, but in practice you have to talk about scope and what can we include and can we test it, yes or no? Do we need a an MVP or version 1, version 2, or blah blah blah. That business talk usually around like how much money do we have for this? How much time do we have? Like that's part of that first step. So it's understand, do, repeat.
Exactly.
That's basically it. I remember when I was fresh out of school, I explained Agile and Scrum, something nobody talks about anymore, to my father. Then it was really hip and cool back in the day, like Agile and Scrum. And he told me like, oh, but I've been doing that for 40 years. I'm like, oh, And that really, at that time, talking about, like you said, about taking a hit and accepting feedback. I was really confused at that time, like, no, that's not possible. It's new, blah, blah, blah. You don't know what you're talking about. But, I guess he was right, in hindsight, like it's, we should be, maybe that's my advice also, like you should be aware of fancy keywords, wrapped around an old school way of working that's been around for a long time.
I think it was the fancy title, Scrum Master, which I always had a bit of royalty to it.
Oh yes,
to that.
Yeah.
We have
Scrum Master is in charge.
The Scrum Master is coming in. Toot the horns.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, but that's still something that's in like I've been everywhere, like from large multinational corporations. I've worked at the largest company in the Netherlands. Like if you look at how big they are on the stock market, there are so many Scrum Masters there and product owners and all these like overhead roles, where I feel like this is really a waste of time. Like, you shouldn't ban it altogether, but it can be toned down a bit. And then if you look at startups, like there are no Scrum Masters. Like we call it a founder over there, and it's probably a middle way that's best, and I know it's not as easy as that, but the division, like the difference between the two is massive.
Yes, to your point, beware of branding to our last conversation. It's just where there is classical techniques or foundational kind of strategies where they pop up they rebrand it in a cool way that we adopt for a little while, that we let go.
Oh yeah, for sure. All that you really shouldn't get confused by it. For example, now you've probably heard it yourself, is that Shopify is not using UX anymore in their job titles. It's just a designer now. And people are really falling off the ship because of it. They are really like, oh no, see, UX is dead. But I don't really think it matters what one company does, because I've been in a company where they didn't have seniority, for example, like everyone was just UX designer or super flat. And then in another place I came in, I felt like, well, I'm a senior designer. And then they told me like, no, you're a junior designer. And that hurt my feelings. And then I got confused. So, it's just companies don't really understand, or well, maybe that's not fair to say. Companies have different values for labels, what a senior person is, what a UX designer is, what a product designer is. But in practice, you do more or less the same thing. So it doesn't matter. So that's maybe another don't on the list of do's and don'ts. Like, do not get confused or do not become unmotivated because people make a change by one company way too big.
Would we have had the same reaction to if Shopify at the time, back in the day, like we're no longer using the term web designer anymore?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. True. Well, that's a fun thing also, that, a web designer, back in the day is designing for the web. But I don't see web designer a lot anymore as a job title, but we're still designing for the web. So it's just a label. It doesn't really matter. Like if you connect the don't to a do, like don't get confused by changing labels, but the do attached to it is you have to speak the language of the current label. Like my resume was senior UX designer as a title. Now it's senior product designer. Like, I just changed the label because I know in practice it's the same work. And I know, in my career, I will change it a couple more times to whatever is going to be the accepted label at any given point.
I guess to answer the question, what are you, a yes or a no? Should someone invest into becoming a product designer?
100% yes. It's worth it. It's fun. It's achievable. And I think it's quite AI safe.
Yes. Not as safe as a plumber, but still safe.
Well, you don't know. Nobody knows. That's maybe a good side note. Nobody knows anything.
Exactly. I think I'm with you. I think, yes. I think, well, I do this on a daily basis. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it. So to all our previous points, if you meet the requirements, absolutely yes.
Yeah. If you work hard and search for a mentor, by the way, that's something the both of us, you and I, we both mentor people. If that's a verb, to mentor someone.
Yes.
That's something we do. I think having a good mentor, someone who's on the job, is a massive benefit.
That's a secret unlock.
Yeah. Which also almost makes this a 1 hour recording session appear like it's some sort of product placement ad for your mentorship services and mine, which it isn't, because it just came up to me. But you should, to anyone listening, you should have a mentor session with Tyler, because all I hear is good stuff coming out of it.
Appreciate that. I think we have
probably a link we can put somewhere.
somewhere in the description.
Yeah. I think it's on our website, right? On the designtablepodcast.com website. I think we have a very short in progress about the host page where we have some links to our stuff, right?
Yeah, let's push some more traffic towards our website there. Which you do an incredible job maintaining.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, that's maybe an interesting thing to talk about next time. Also a little bit like our day-to-days and our side hustles, because we have full-time work, but we also do some stuff on the side. And one of those things is this show. And you are the editor, and I'm the website / growth builder person. So we do both. We both do interesting stuff behind the scenes for this show. Right.
Yeah, it'd be cool to pull the curtain back and then get into the nitty gritty, what we do on a day-to-day basis outside of our. To your point.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be super interesting. It's. I think on social media you see a lot of people. They just talk about the same things. Liquid glass good, liquid glass bad. Shopify UX good or bad. It's just talking and echoing what everyone's already saying. But I really think the next episode, like unscripted, is going to be a gold mine of interesting UX and product design insider stories.
I'm with you. I didn't know that we were scripted. I think everything we do is unscripted.
Yeah. I think I gave away the biggest secret now.
Yeah, there you go.
We're not even real. We are AI voices. That's a joke, by the way.
Great conversation. I love this topic.
Yeah, me as well. All right. Well, that's it for today.
That's it. On to the next. See you in the next episode.
All right. See you then.
That was a great episode. So if you like this content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe.
Yeah. And if you want to see more, please go to designtablepodcast.com, Spotify, Apple Music, all the big players and more.